Here to help me set it up.
Okay.
Okay, can you see the Gemara?
Not yet.
Not yet.
There it is.
Okay, perfect. The screen looks like it was raised up high.
It's higher.
Just move. No, it's not.
We moved it to the long
Not
one.
in the corner. It's against the wall.
Okay, gewaltig. So yesterday we learned about a machlokes between if a woman is, what type of virus they hang you for. The Torah says kikillas alakim toli, which we touch as meaning dafka if someone was makal and megadav. The question is, who else gets hanged? So there's a machlokes if all niskolim gets hanged, which is what Rabbi Eliezer holds, or the Chachamim who holds only Megadef and Oived Avodah Zarah, who's also being a kofer in their bunch. And the reasoning behind the machlokes is a general global understanding of how to darash psukim. There's the klal upratu klal method, and there's a ribui miyut ribui method. The klal prat uklal method says that whenever there's a klal and then there's a prat, the prat defines the klal. So therefore, it limits it only to the item in the prat. Now, if there's another klal following the prat, A, or B, in our case, if the prat isn't right near the klal, it's far away, then you say that the prat doesn't limit it only to what the prat is, it limits it to items that are very similar to the prat. If you have that method, then you're only going to include in the mitzvah of kliyah the makalo, which is the prat itself, and someone who's over avodah zarah, which is very close and similar to the makalo. But if you learn the ribui miyut ribui method, then the general approach is that when there's a ribui and then there's a miyut, the miyut isn't defining the ribui. The miyut is just limiting the ribui. Therefore, if there's a miyut and there's a ribui and a miyut, what you would say is it would limit it to the miyut and anything similar to the miyut, which would be megadef and oived avodah zarah. But now that there's another ribui following the miyut, or in our case, the miyut is far away from the ribui, we say that the miyut is going to open it up much more. And not only will Mekalel Hashem, not only will Oived Avodah Zarah be nitla, but every niskol and any aver that comes with the misa of skila will also require kliyah. That was the machlokes. So now we're about 7 lines from the top on Mem Vav Amud Aleph, and we're up to the halacha of a ish toilet. So there's a machlokes in our.
So just sorry, Yossi, just remind me, what does far away mean? I know derech rechoika in Pesach Sheni means a foot outside the Azara, but what does it mean here, far away?
I think it means it's not in the same pasuk. It's like, or not in the next pasuk. It's like in a different parsha.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
I didn't actually check from inside, but it probably means it's not right there in the same pasuk.
I know, but then I have to go at Shavas Saveda, where you know how it goes into a definition of klal uprat to klal, and it's really in the same parsha. I'm going to put an asterisk by it and come back to it.
Okay, gewaltig.
All right.
Oh, by the way, this week is the sicha about the Etzem Hazeh. You know which sicha I'm talking about?
Yes, that's right.
Comparing to Noach, building Teva, and the Yidden leaving Mitzrayim. Remember?
Yeah, that was actually from the end of. It was at the end. Was from Parsha Zois Bracha. Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh is the day he died, and Moshe they all stood and they said they're not going to let him die, right?
But the nice thing about these type of fartlach is you can use them 3 times a year.
Right.
Okay, Zok the Gemara, Ish Toilet. The machlokes we have in the Mishnah is if they hang a man and a woman, or if they only hang a man. Now we did say if they hang a woman, they also hang her with her back facing the tzibur. Now the other thing that's important to mention is we're going to see soon today that even if the people were hanged, they were hanged for just a small moment, literally up and down. They were not left to hang like like we see nowadays what ISIS does. That doesn't happen. So Zoktimar, my time at the Rabban. Omikra, the Salisa Oisoi. And we make a deal. Oisoi, male version, V'lo Oisoi, not a female. Rabbi Lazar, he uses Oisoi to tell us something else. Oisoi B'liksusoi. When the person is hanged, he's hanged naked. Rabbanon, what about Rabbanon? Doesn't he also darshan Oisoi B'liksusoi? So how does he learn from Oisoi to exclude women? Einachanami. We actually have another pasuk to exclude women from Kliya. It says v'chiyah be'ish chet, ish v'lo isha, and the pasuk of v'chiyah be'ish chet says v'chiyah be'ish chet, and he was killed. Umas v'salisa Israelites. So that applies only to an ish. Rabbi Lazar, what is he going to do with this pasuk? He already knows ish v'lo isha. Come on, say, zok to Gemara. Hi v'chiyah be'ish my darish pei. A Ben Sarumayr does not get hanged after he's killed. So we learn V'chiyah be'ish. An ish meaning a male, an adult, and not a ben, not a youth. Zok to Gemara, but the Brisa says not like that. Vatanya Ben Sarumayr niskal v'nisla. We learned that a Ben Sarumayr after his kill does get hanged. The Rabbi Eliezer. So you can't say Rabbi Eliezer learns from V'chiyah be'ish chet that a Ben Sarumayr is not hanged, because in fact he holds a Ben Sarumayr is hanged. El Amar of Nachman by Yitzchak, Le Rabbi's Ben Sarumayr. To the contrary, the Chiyah be'ish chet is actually including a Ben Sarumayr. How in the world do you see from the Chiyah be'ish chet to include a Ben Sarumayr? If just a moment ago we said Ish v'loy ben, my time, how do you see it from there? Yomar Kra, the Chiyah be'ish chet. If you did an Avera, then v'loy ben chet. Someone who did an Avera who's a minor doesn't get hanged. However, when it says chet, so it says v'chiyah be'ish chet ish v'loy ben. But chet, he did an Avera. Mishal chetay nerak. You know when a minor does not get hanged? If he did an Avera, and the Avera had a chiyav misa connected to it, there he wouldn't get hanged. Yotza ben Sarumayr, who didn't get killed because he did an Avera, it shall shem soif by nera. We know that the Ben Sarumayr didn't do any Avera. He's a zoyel of a soife. We're only killing him because the Torah is telling us he will end up being a very bad person. So let's kill him before he does Averas. So Ben Sarumayr is not killed al chetay. So that's excluded from this parasha. And therefore, when it says ish v'loy ben, that's only if someone's been killed for an Avera. But if someone's killed for a different reason, then he would also get hanged. Rabbis that a Ben Sarumayr, even though he's a minor, he gets hanged after he's niskal. Amalei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer told him, how could you tell me that you don't hang women? Shimon ben Shetach told Anoshim. Shimon ben Shetach did that. And so they answered back, you can't bring me a ride from Shimon ben Shetach. The whole story of Shimon ben Shetach was a separate, it was a separate gzeira that he did because he saw it was necessary, but it wasn't following the normal rules of a chiv misa, because you're normally not allowed to paskin, a business is not allowed to paskin on two chiv misas in one day. And here Shimon ben Shetach had 80 women killed in one day. So clearly that's not following the normal channels of Allah. So there's halacha that they can't paskin on two different misais in one day is only if it's two different misas we're talking about. So it's two different affairs that have two different onshim. So they won't be able to fully focus on either one if they did both in one day. But if two people did the same avera and has the same chiv misa, then they would be able to. So if that's the case, what was wrong with what the Shimon ben Shetach did? It was very normal, because all these 80 women seem to have done the same avera. Frank the Gemara of Amaisha, the Shimon ben Shetach, the Misa Achas Avoy, it was all one Misa. The Ka'amrule, and they told him they ain't done it. They said that you wouldn't be able to pass in multiple Misas in one day. But this should have been no problem at all. This should have been within the channels of normal Bezdin procedures. This is how you'd have to learn. Lo yishonu al b'misa achas ke'en shtei misas. A misa achas ke'en shtei misas, that's something that that's something that you wouldn't be able to do. What is a misa achas ein shnei misais? Veichidami going shtei averos. There's two different averos, and each of these two averos have, let's say, a chiv skila that you can't do because even though they have the same misa, the same hoinish, but the deliberations are about two different subjects, and therefore you cannot pass on both these things in one day. But if both of these charged have done exactly the same avera with the same misa, so there they don't have to focus on two different areas. It's all one specific area, and therefore done and it would be allowed. So, what happened by Shimon and Shedach? Rashi says by Shimon and Shedach they were all being killed for kisha, for witchcraft, but they didn't all do the same witchcraft. There's Oivi Yadoini. I'm not familiar with all different types. But Rashi says there's many different types of witchcraft. So therefore, even though they all had the same misa, but at the end of the day, it's still different things that they were being paskin for, and therefore wouldn't have been allowed. Rashi says in the first wide line, the Ika ba'Oiv the Ika ba'Oiv, the Ika ba'Yadoni, Oiv and Yadoni are two different things. So at the end of the day, Bezin couldn't have paskin on these two things in one day if it wasn't for the separate Gzeir the Sur Chashah that Shimon ben Shetach said, decided to act on. So Zotkum a Mesover Ada Bar Ava. Ain't done in Shnaim B'yoim Echad. You don't pass on two people in one day. Vafil b'noya f'nei office. Even when you're passing on the same couple who did nos. Now that's very schwer because this is one misa and it's one avera. So why wouldn't a person be able to pass them both? Normally, someone who's boiled on anayir hamurasa gets skila, and the person who's boiled on deishishish gets chenek. But the bas koyin gets shreifa, and that's one of the very unique halachas where in a couple that was mizana, there's two different misas involved. The woman gets shreifa as a bas koyin, and the man either gets skila if it's a murasa, or would get chenek if it was a nesua. So there, it's two different misas, therefore it couldn't be paskin in one day, even though it's the same aver. Or a baskoin and zoymei. So let's have a look. A baskoin, two Adam came and said that the baskoin was mezana. So she gets reifa. But the Adam were musa. So now what happens is she's at this point she's no longer going to be killed, and the Adam who said she was mezana will get killed. Now a third set of Adam came and was mezamim those Adam. So now she gets killed because the first set of Adam are now reestablished. She gets shreifa, and the zoymei get killed, but they only get chenek because they get the misa of what the man would have gotten, which we learn from Rosh Hashanah. So at the end of the day, it's one avera, but it's two different misas, and that's where the Brisa says afilu b'noy from the office they cannot paskin both of them in one day. Tanya Belazar ben Yaakov, Shemati I heard Bezdin makin b'oinchin shalom in the Torah. Bezdin has the authority to give makas and oinchin even if it's not dictated by the Torah, but if they see fit, they could sanction and beat people. Not that they're going to be renegades and do things against the Torah. If they see a need to create a siyag Torah, they can make certain oinchin. The times of the Yavanim where Yiddishkeit was being battered, and someone merely did an Issur D'Rabbanan by riding on a horse on Shabbos, which is only an Issur D'Rabbanan. And the Yula Bezdin V'Saklu, they actually gave this person skila. Not because this Avera would get the onish of skila. Bezdin saw that there's a terrible backing up of people adhering to the Torah, so they had to put their foot down to reestablish the chomer of the Torah. Shuv ma'isa b'adam echad. There was another story. She'tiach es ishtoi tachas et eina. he had relations with his wife under a tree, meaning in a public place, which is highly inappropriate. But there's no official law for it. But they gave him malchus. Not because there's halacha that he's over a lav. He wasn't over a lav. Again, the business saw there was a lot of preachers going on, and they had to start cleaning it up. So this Gemara is a Gemara that's used. This extrajudicial murder that we were discussing actually is very relevant because in the times of the Rishonim, in the early Achronim, Moisrim were often killed. And this is where they used this Gemara, when there was a Moiser. And actually, the Ram speaks about it, the Rosh speak about it, there's a discussion if you could kill a Moiser or not. And the Shita, the Ram says, because of this Gemara, there's a Moiser that's causing tremendous trouble to the Jewish community, they can kill him. And that's where it comes from. Zok Gemara. So what is exactly the process of the hanging? So the halacha is as follows. They take a beam and they just plunge it into the ground so that it should remain vertical. They didn't attach it in any way to fasten it, to make it mechubla karka, but they just plunged it into the ground so it should stay vertical. So Meshakin Zakoya Baritz, Va'etz Yoitza, and there was a horizontal piece of wood that came out of this post, and that's how he was hung. Umakav Shteyod Zulga. So his two hands were tied together, but and through by his hands being pulled together, it formed a lot. It formed something that could be put on the peg that would hold him up. Rabbi Yosy Omer, no, they didn't even plunge the beam into the ground. They just let it sit on the ground and mota ala koisel. It leaned against the koisel. It leaned against the wall and that held it up. And they would hang this person like the butchers hang. I'm not sure exactly what it looked like, unless the Arshkro has a picture. I'm not sure exactly what this looked like. But umatirin oisamiyad. He was only hung for just a moment to be Mekayim, the mitzvah of Tliyah, and he was immediately taken back down. Vimlon, if the person was left hanging overnight, over Allah b'loisase, then they're over loisase. Shenemar loisolin live losay ala eitz. You're not allowed to leave his corpse on the wood hanging. Ki cover sick forenu, you must bury him right away. Ki kilalas elakim toli. Because the klal of Hashem is hanging. What does that mean? Why is he hanging? So anybody who walks by is going to say, "What that guy hanging there?" They'll say because he was Mekalas Hashem. By discussing somebody who's Mekalas Hashem, that in and of itself is a slight to cover the Shemayim. The Nims Hashem Shemayim is Kala. So you got to get him off that hanging post quickly. Amar Meir, Bishash Adam Mitzdayer, when someone is feeling bad, and Rashi says not stam because he's in a bad mood. Rashi says Mitzdayer. Rashi says Shaparonus Bala Bavoina. If someone is suffering because he did a virus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu feels with him. As the Mishnah says weiter, Shchina ma loshen emeres. What does the Shchina say? Kaleni meroishi. Oi, my head is heavy. Kaleni mizroi. My arms is heavy. I feel overstressed and overburdened. That's how the HaKadosh Baruch Hu feels about a person who's suffering, even though that person is suffering for his own affairs. The Rebbe Shalom still feels hard. It's still hard for the Rebbe Shalom. The Rebbe Shalom still feels like his whole body is heavy from the stress. If the Kadosh Baruch Hu is such tsar for a Rasha who did an Avera and he's only being punished for his Averas, surely when any one of us are going through a difficult time, the Rebbe feels our pain. Not only is there an Isser to leave the body of a niskal of a nitla overnight, anybody who leaves over any mace overnight, of course, unless it's for covet of the mace himself. As the Mishnah says, for instance, to prepare him for burial, then there's no Isser. The people that were killed with Mrs. Bezdin did not get buried in their family plots. Ella, the Bezdin had two batei kvaros, and these are learned from Psukim. One basic verse was for those who got herring and chenek. The achas in the skull and v'nisrafim. Another basic verse for people who got skil and shreif. And they buried the bodies in those batei kvaros. However, this akel abosor, once the body is completely decomposed and there's only bones remaining, then melaktin this hatzomois the koivenois of the. Then they would gather the bones of this person who was killed, and he would be transferred to the kever of Yosef.
So there's no travel there. You can't go visit the shrine and see, oh, this was got Sreifa, there's a Ben Sarah Meyer, there's
That's
a
right.
Machalish. Right?
That's right. They all get cleared out.
Right.
Yeah,
Keep
right.
He wants
Akima wants to
two
do a
stones
trip.
for one.
No, I want to do a trip. 1 second. I want to do a trip. I also want to know what you would write on this guy's matzeva. Nerag al Yadei based in. What are we going to say? Niskal v'nitla.
Niskal al Kiddush Hashem. Because
Yeah, Mati said you can sell them two matzevas.
Right, one for each one, for each
That's right.
cemetery. Right.
Gewaltig. Okay, so after the death sentence is carried out, the family doesn't bear a grudge against Bezdin. The Akrayvim boim, the Shoyalim Mishleim Adayonim, they wish them well, Uveshaloim Ha'edim, and they even wish the Edim well, because they have to appreciate that what was done was for the best, to give a kapara to their relative. We have no hard feelings against you. Shedin emes dantem. The psak that you gave was just, and the correct thing was done, which is probably a very hard thing to do. They didn't sit bavelis, and Rashi says the reason why they didn't is because that's also a bezoin for the mace. And we want the bezoin of the mace to add to the kapara that we want the mace to have. But they are onion. Why? Aninus is in your heart. It's not something that's done publicly, and therefore it wouldn't cause any bezoin or lack of bezoin to the nifter if the person feared with halachas of onion. But avelos, that already is a covet for the nifter, and therefore, in order to add to the kapara of the nifter, there was no avelos. Tanuraban, ilu nemar chet v'talisa. Right? It says v'chibe ish chet v'talisa. Hayisi yomer toilu noisai. First they hang him because it says v'chibe ish chet v'talisa. They hasn't very hang him. So mashma, that's the first thing you do. First you hang him, v'achach b'mis noisai, and then you kill him kederach shamalchus oisai, like the malchus used to do. Talmud Leimer, the Torah says v'humas v'salisa, meaning memisa noisai. First you carry out the misas bezdin. V'achach toilu noisai. Okay, tzad. They did the execution right before Shkiyas Achamo. So everything should go 1, 2, 3. Because if they did the execution in the morning, and then they hung him, they might forget to come take him down later on.
How do they
But
hang him?
Shkiyah, they have to work quickly and do everything right away.
Yeah, I don't know what the shayla is.
So, okay, tzad. The Goymer Nestinoi, they paskin on him. And they kill him. The achach toil noisoi, and it's so quick. Echad kosher v'echad mat. One person ties him up and hangs him, and immediately the next guy comes and takes him down. So it's literally only a moment that this person is remained hanging. The only reason why they did it is to be kind of the mitzvah of tliya, not to allow the body to hang there for an extended period of time. Taner Rabbanim, 8. It says v'salisa oisai al 8. So Shemeani, I would think, bein betolish, bein b'mechuber. The 8 could be mechuber l'karka. Talmud Leimer, ki kavar. And Rashi tells us that the halacha is when they buried this person, they actually buried the post that he was hung on. They buried that as well. So therefore, we learn ki kavar. If you remember, a couple of days ago, we learned that all the accessories with which he was killed and hung on get buried with him. But we said it's not literally in his grave. It's nearby. And I think David mentioned that makes it expensive because now they have to buy a second plot. But could be this was only in the first basic forest. Could be they didn't transfer that with his bones when they moved them. So they used that same place, but I don't know. But I call upon them, they used to bury that stake.
I don't know, Mati. It sounds to me like this post and the branch have a din of Sheamus.
You have to pay himself. Why?
So Shamani baby told ben Mechaber, he cover. It has to be that all that needs to get down to the Kfuras Kfura, if it was Mechuber Lakarka, then it would have to be cut down before it could be buried. But this way, if it's only plunged into the ground, then just pull it out of the ground and bury it. It doesn't need ketzitza. But Rabbi Yosy, if you remember, Rabbi Yosy said you don't even plunge it into the ground. You just lean it against the wall. Because he learns, you still have to pull it out of the ground. Therefore, he held they didn't plunge it into the ground at all. They just leaned it against the wall. Rabbanon, the Rabbanon is Tlisha, that's mafsik before the kfura. Just pulling something out of the ground, that's not called anything, and therefore it's not a contradiction to mishein mechusar al kfura, because pulling it out of the ground is not called mechusar anything at all. Kloimar mipnei maza totally mipnei shaber Tanya Mar Meir moshlu moshlu l'mad overdoing. They gave a moshel comparing why it's not respectful to the Rebbeinu Shalom to allow a person who is created with Mustu Yuknoi Shalach Kadosh Baruch Hu to let him hang. There were two identical twins, Be'ir Achas in one city. Echad Mineu Melech, one became a king, a very honorable, respectful person. The Echad Yotzal Elistiyos, and the other one became a politician. A gangster. Kiva HaMelech, the Melech commanded Vitalu, and they hung him. So Kalaroya, so anyone saw the brother, the criminal hanging, Omer would say, HaMelech Tali, the king is hanging. So Tziva HaMelech Vayridu, so that's the mashal. If we leave a Tzelem Elakim hanging, it's a design to the Rebbeinu. Amar Meir, my mashla. How do you see from Kilas Elakim Tali that Rebbeinu says, oh, I have a heavy mind, I have a heavy arms because I'm suffering along with the Yiddish. Amar Abaye, command the Amar, kal less. I'm not lightheaded. I'm heavy-handed. I'm heavy-headed. My arms aren't light and energetic. They're heavy. So kilas elakim toli v'darshan kal less. They're not light. They're heavy. Amalei Rava im kain. Why speak backwards? It should have said kabed alai roishi. Kabed alai roishi. Kabed alai roishi. That's what it should have said. Not kalani. Kabed. Ela Amar Rava command Amar kill li alma. Kill the alma, Rashi says, it's mechana. So he says everybody else has it light, but he's not directly addressing that he's suffering. That's how people speak. They don't want to speak bad on themselves. Break the Gemara, but don't we need a positive to tell us kill us alakim toli that you can't leave the person hanging? So if that's the only message the Torah was teaching us, my kilalas, so we can learn both things. Maybe all we learn from kilalas is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzvah with us. But who said we learn from there that you cannot leave the person hanging? So kolas, my kilalas, Shema Minotarti, you can learn from this passage two things. A is that you cannot leave him hanging too long, and B is that the Rebbeinu Shalom is mitzvah together with this person who was killed. But even a regular mace is not allowed to be left overnight. We have all the members of the Chaver Kaddish over here, so this is Mamash Chaver Kaddish Gemara. How do you know it's a lav? Cover sick for random. Cover sick for random. You got to do it fast. Not only kavar, referring to the person who was killed by Mrs. Bezdin, but even sick for random anybody else. If Remez l'kfur min atarminayin, and this is a nachmin alocha. Because if it's from sikperenu, then it's a deraisa. If it's a remez l'kfur min atarminayin, it's a derabanan with a remez. Tamaloymer kikaver sikperenu, you can't remez l'kfur min atar. Amalish for Malka Reb Chama. Shvar Malka asked Reb Chama the following question: Kavura min atar minayin. How do you know that kvura is min atar? That you have to bury a mace. Ishtik v'loy Amar lei v'loy midi. Rav Chama didn't answer as if he didn't have an answer. Amar Machba Yaakov, I don't understand. There's an obvious answer. Imser almo b'yodim to Tipshoi. Has the world being in over to Tipshim? Don't you know? We have a Meforsh Limud. The boy of the Meimer, Rav Chama should have told Shvar Malka, Ki Kavar. Zog to Gemara, Rav Chama understood how Shvar Malka, how these goyim would understand the pasuk, and they wouldn't accept that Ki Kavar as telling you that there's a chiyuv to bury. They would have said, no, it just means the aron. You have to make him an aron, a mausoleum or something. But they wouldn't accept. Shvar Malka wouldn't have accepted that cover means you need to have kavur. But what about sikverenu? It's a double ocean. We know every syllable, every ois mentioned in the Torah you could darshan. But a guy wouldn't accept that from sikverenu we could learn a whole new halacha that there's a chiyuv kavur. So fact the Gemara, but Reb Chama could have had other sources. The name of me, the Ikvar Tzadiki. He could have told Reb Chama, look, all Tzadikim are buried. You see, this is how it's done. So the Gemara, Shvar Malka would have thought, Minhag Ba'alma. Midakavar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. Why couldn't Reb Chama bring a raya from the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu buried Moshe? And then Dr. Gemara, the Shvar Malka would have said, that's only the listening in Minhagah. That's only because Hashem wanted to treat Moshe like all other tzaddikim. But you don't have a raya from a pasuk in Shvar Malka's opinion. You couldn't have. There's no way for Chama to show Shvar Malka that there's a mitzvah daraisa to bury a mace. Tashma, the sabdu loy kol Yisrael the cover oisai. Now this was referring. Rashi says to the son of a Rasha. I think it was the son of Yerovam. It says Ba'avia ben Yerovam. Rashi says. So Achia Shiloni Nisnabalo. Achia Shiloni said Nevuah on the son of Yerovam. Davar Zeh L'Shvach. This Nevuah was a Nevuah L'Shvach because he was going to have a proper Kfura. Yan Ki Nimtzadoi Davar Toiv Shabitel Pardesoy Shoy Shavaviv. The Balti is Mevatel. The Pardesoys that his father made to stop people from being on the Regel. Because of that, Achia Shiloni was Nisnabe that the software called Yisrael to cover Isa. So you see, there's a mitzvah. Only a Russia wouldn't get buried, but a Tali gets buried. So you see, there's a mitzvah to bury. So he wouldn't have accepted that either. That's only to treat him like everybody else. There's a terrible nevuah about a terrible Peronius that's mentioned in Yirmiyahu, and it says Lo Yispadu, they won't have a hesped, Lo Yikfru, they won't be buried. They'll be like dead meat on the ground that birds will eat. So you see from the fact that it's a curse not to have a kfura, that should be a right that there's a chiv to do a kfura for a regular person. So no, the lishtin and miminaga. All it means is that the curse was that the minig is to bury everybody. You're not going to benefit from that minig. So now the Gemara is a different child. Why did we bury?
Yossi, there was no answer to the Shalah. What did he answer? The Reish Galusa?
He did, no, it wasn't the Reish Galusa. It was Shvar Malka. He didn't answer Shvar Malka because he knew any answer that he would offer, Shvar Malka would reject. So he rather said nothing at all. I guess you don't always have to answer. Rabbi Shlomo Miller once told me, no answer is also an answer. Okay, so Didn't
we have a Gemara a little while ago that you have to know how to answer the Apikoros?
Yeah. And Apikoros. Yeah, but I was swearing Malk and Apikoros. He wasn't coming.
But it sounds like he's just being an anti. We have an answer right here. We had an answer right before the Gemara that talks about this story.
And that's what the Gemara asks. And the Gemara asks that, Kasha. Why didn't he say the answer that we had? The problem is he knew that Shvar Malka wouldn't accept it.
Yeah, Yossi, we also learned that when you're in a court in the jury, you can't abstain. You can't say, I have no opinion or I have no answer.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot. No, you cannot. No, we did not.
Hashem Sanhedrin, we had it. That there are Dayanim who can say, I don't know, and then they have to add on 2 more. Yeah, there is a possibility.
So, but answering I don't know is not really not answering or abstaining. Yossi, you told me that discussion. You can't have somebody saying I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a Sanhedrin. This is not a Sanhedrin. This is a guy asking him a question.
Yeah, but I think you have to always be ready. You always have to have an answer if you can.
Always an opinion.
You also have to be a chacham that if your answer won't be received, well, then maybe it's better not saying anything at all.
I think that's the point of this Gemara, is that sometimes you got to shvab still.
No, 100%.
As far as what Shlomi brought up about answering Apikoros, the Gemara seems to be very specific, but then Apikoros tries to distort the psukim to make it look like there's multiple gods. You have to know the right shot to straighten them out. But I don't think it means any random question. It means if you have to know how to undo and expose their nonsense when they use psukim and they distort the psukim in order to try to make their fake point.
There is an answer for that. Fake news. Whatever the guys just say fake news. That's it.
Here. Yeah, well, my favorite story is the story of
the Gemara brought that as a block and a half.
My favorite story is the story about the missionaries who are walking down Bakerest, and every Baba screams at them and throws them out, says, "Get out of here! Stay out of our neighborhood! You make trouble." And when the guy came to my house, I said, "Come on in, sit down. Let me offer you a coffee." So I sit him down. They offer him a coffee. And they said, "Okay, what did you want to tell me?" They started stuttering. I said, "What's the problem?" The truth is, we never got this far. We don't know what to do from this point on. Okay, sag the Gemara weiter.
I got you. I understand.
So sag the Gemara. Is the reason why we do kvura, because if you let the body rot, it's a bizoyin to the family. Never mind it's a bizoyin to the mace himself. It's a bizoyin to the family. What the reason why we do kvura is, or has nothing to do with the family. It's because by burying somebody, there's a kapara. How is there a kapara by burying somebody? So Rashi tells us that the reason why there's a kapara, that's it's a little bit humbling to be lower down in the ground after you were once a vibrant person. That's the kapara. And Rabbi Rav spoke out something very interesting. We're a medaber, where Yisrael, we're the highest madrega of creation. And what happens once someone dies and they're buried? They don't even become like a diamond. They're not even like a rock, because they totally disintegrate. They become lower than a rock. So it's a very, very humbling experience, and that's why Kvura is a kapara. So Zokamar, what's the nafkamina? What's the nafkamina? Zok the Gemara. Where am I up to? The Amar, if the Nifter said, when he was still alive, of course, I don't want you to bury me. Then he doesn't have a right. He doesn't have a right to be moichel on the humiliation of the family. So you don't listen to him. But the Amit Mishum Kaparahu, but if the only reason why you bury is because of a kapara, Ha'amar loy bo'ina kapara. He said he didn't want. My what's halacha? So we're going to go through all the same rayos we had a minute to go about Kfura. Toshma. The ikvar tzaddik, from the fact that they bury tzaddikim. It can't be because of kapara. The Amit Mishum Kapara, tzaddiki l'chapara tzrichi. Do tzaddikim need kapara? So of course, in the chsiv Adam ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher yasa toiv v'lo Toshma. The Navi said on Avua, the son of Yerovam, the Savtu Loi Kol Yisrael, the cover Isai. Navi Amrit. If you hold that it's because of a kapara, Hanach Nami Likperu, kapara. Even the Rishoyim should get buried. It's matra, he's going to be buried because he was a tzaddik. If it's for a kapara, the Rishoyim should get buried as well. So they should have a kapara. So tomorrow, no. How did tzaddiku to have the kapara? And the earlier person, we want him to have the maximum kapara. How if the Rishoyim? Let him have a kapara. We don't want them to have a kapara. Let him burn in hell. Tashma. There was a klala given the klai shor chmon was called la yispudu v'la yikavu v'la yikbru. Why? So you see that you're not burying them. I need a kapara. So tomorrow it's the same svara. The loy to have a kapara. Prepared. That was part of the klala that they wouldn't be buried and therefore they wouldn't have a kapara, even though they did need it. Now the Gemara is the same shal about a hesped. Hesped is yakri nechaya have it. Is it because it's covered for the family that the greatness of their relative is being highlighted? Or yakri neshachvi, or is it covered for the mates? Hava. Again, the Amar lo shispedua lo gaver. What if the person says, "I don't want the hesped"? Inami or lafuke miyorsh. If you hold that it's covered for the mace, then you would force the Yarshim to pay. If it's out covered for the Yarshim would say, we don't want to pay for someone to come and be maspid. Tashma, it says, Vayovay Avram, Lisboid L'Sara V'Lefkais. Avram Avinu Sarah died while Avram was away. Yet Sarah's body was held and kept until Avram Avinu had a chance to get back from the Akedah to be maspeder. If the purpose of a husband is to benefit Sarah, okay, so we keep her waiting till Avram gets back. But if it has the cover of Avram Avinu, they're going to stop Sarah from being buried? So tomorrow, yes, because even if it's for the cover of Avram, Sarah Gufa Nichala, Sarah would be happy that they keep her body until Avram gets back to give respect to Avram. That's not till death do us part. That's even after death we don't part. Our covenant is even after death. Zogt Rashi, Mashul L'Sar, Achaba Avram, Mibeis HaKedes Yitzchak. We don't know how long that took. So they kept Sarah's body until Avram Avinu was able to get back from the Akedah and be masped. If it's only because of respect for the people who are alive, the family of this person of Avua were Rishoyim. Again, the tzaddik is happy that his body should stay out, so that his family could be honored for him. Toshba, Edom were cursed. Well, Yishpedu, well, Yikoveru. Again, you see that they didn't get a hesped. Again, because Loinicha, the tzadikaya, the miyakri, Hirshiyaya. It said if it's covered for the people who are alive, so why wouldn't they get a hesped? It's not about the dead person. The teretz is that the alive tzaddikim aren't interested in getting respect over these rishonim. Tashma, B'Shalom Thomas. This was a beautiful nevuah that the Novi said to Tzidkiyahu, who was a tzaddik, and he said as follows: B'Shalom Thomas, you're going to die in peace. I think it means that they would destroy the personal effects of the king, so no one else could use them. They'll be masped you. If the purpose of the hesped is for the covenant of the people living, my nafkalemine, why would he care about having this hesped? Your Klal Yisrael will get covered like they got covered from your fathers. Okay, let's stop here. And Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow is Sunday. Tomorrow we'll learn Sunday's daf. I'm going to try to get ahead because I'm not sure if I'm going to be in the airplane on Monday. So we'll see what I can pull off. So Mitchell, tomorrow we'll learn at 7 and at 9.
Yes, Hashem.
Shkoyach Yossi, thank you very much.
I know it's freezing cold, but is it snowing too?
No, it's too cold to snow.
Okay, so I won't have to shovel when I get home.
No shoveling required. The sun was brilliant today. Brilliant sun.
Wow. We did Kiddush Levana tonight. Did you guys do Kiddush Levana?
We're only up to Gimel, $1. Where are we?
Some people did. Some people went out to do Kiddush Levana tonight.
I did Kiddush Lavona because I was afraid of last month. It was so hard to find a moon.
You have to be with the roof.
Akiva, I'm on the first floor of the building. Do you know what's right above me?
No one.
The main Chabad of the old city.
Oh wow.
I'm right under Chabad.
Yeah, so you're right in the center.
Yeah, I'm right in the square, in the Chorva square.
Wow. Do you have to keep Purim now for 2 days because you were in your Shalayim 2 months in advance? You considered a Taishuv or? It's especially Purim is on a Friday this year, Yossi.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So amazing. You have a great trip. I hope you didn't partake too much in the delicacies of Eretz Yisrael. It's impossible to resist. You walk down the street and it's just begging. No?
All I had I had 2 falafels. That's all I had in my indulgences.
Good for you.
That's not bad. That's very good.
What's your travel plans back? On Monday?
Monday. My flight back is early Monday morning, yeah. I think 11 o'clock my flight leaves.
Okay.
It's a show.
We'll see you in the morning.
Yossi, I wish all our Chabur that one day we can have Shir in Eretz Yisrael together.
Oh,